missionaries, I should say. Not just what I experienced, but also what I learned from him. So this is a picture of all of our team, and Joel in the middle, and his wife Jen is kind of squatting next to me, behind me, and their daughter Lily, who's 3. So Joel, they got there about 2 years ago. They passed their language, final language exam, probably in the last 6 months. He's really good at Hindi. Every time we hear him talk on the phone, it's always fun to hear him talk on the phone because we have no idea what he's saying, but it sounds cool. But just learned so much from him. So I mentioned that when we first got there, that he spent a couple days with us teaching us about their strategy and what they do, how they go about making disciples and everything. And that's what he was teaching us. So then throughout the summer, 3 different times, we specifically met to go through Acts at the 3 missionary journeys so that we could see where that strategy comes from. Is that they didn't just make it up. They look at Acts rather than just a history book. They look at it as an instruction book on how to obey the Great Commission. And so that's what we're supposed to do, is to obey the last command that Jesus gave his disciples, and to go and make disciples. And so that's what we are supposed to do. Not just in India, not just overseas, but here in America. So this is him going through one of the missionary journeys, I think the second one or third one. So you see he has 3 columns on the board at their house. The first one is he wrote down what did God do? And so we went through the journey and we wrote down, so God did this, God healed this person, he saved this person, he told them to go this way. What did God do? The second column was what did they do? So what did Paul do? What did Barnabas, Timothy, all the characters we see, what did they actually do? And then the third one was what was the result? And so pretty much the result one was pretty easy. It was always new believers, new churches, new leaders. So it was we always knew what that one would be. But the first 2, it was him showing us, like, this is how they did it, which probably is how we should be doing it. The gospel hasn't changed in 2,000 years. It's still the same gospel, even though the world looks very different, but ultimately it's still the same. It's still a world lost in sin with the same gospel and the same Savior, the only one that can still save it. So it hasn't changed. And so that's what he taught us. So this is kind of the basic of what it looks like, their strategy. They call it the 4 fields. The first one, they call it entry. So how do you go into a new field? So Paul I don't know how Paul decided to go where he did, but he just showed up at this random city with no believers, and he started sharing the gospel. So the first one, you could look at it, entry, maybe your oikos map or oikos map, people close to you, far from God, as we often hear here. Or looking at Luke 10 and how Jesus sent out his disciples. Those are 2 ways to go in entry, but they planted seeds. They shared the gospel. That's how they started it, right? When you enter a new field, people are lost. They need Jesus, so you share the gospel with them. So that's the second field. The third field is raising those new believers up, because if you share the gospel with hundreds of people and pray for the Lord to save, he probably will. Can't guarantee it, but the Lord desires to save, so he probably will. So you find those believers, and then the third field is you raise them up, you equip them, you teach them on how to make disciples, how to share the gospel, because you don't have to be a believer for 10 years before you can actually share the gospel with someone. You can share the gospel with someone the day you believe. And so the third field is equipping new believers, new leaders, and then the fourth one is gathering them as churches. So in India, it's house churches mostly. As you go to a new village, you have a few households saved, they gather, that's a church. They don't have a building, they don't have a lot of money. It doesn't matter. It's a gathering of believers. That's the church. So that's their basic strategy, and you see that all the time in Acts if you go and read the missionary journey. So this is what we did. This is a picture of me and one of our translators named Karishma and a teammate, Laura Kate, in the rain. It's just started raining, but we were walking, and we had just finished talking to a Buddhist man, an older Buddhist man at his house. We literally just walked up to his house and said, "Hey, can we talk to you?" And he said, "Sure." And so we walked through in his gate and sat in his house and just got to share with him. But that's what we did the whole summer, is just go into houses. And whenever people were interested, if they weren't interested, they rejected it completely. We just asked them if we could pray for them, and then we left. But if they were interested, then we followed up with them at all. Whether they believed or they were just interested in hearing more, and we followed up. And so that's what we did there. And so I mentioned my trek last week a little bit. So this is a picture of making disciples played out, an example. So Jay is on the right. It was me, Robert Allen, and Jay, the three of us that went on that trek. But this was the beginning as we were driving up the mountain to a village where we would start trekking from. So the third guy is Jay's cousin, is a believer and one of Jay's 3 disciples. So we trekked for a while, but honestly, the last night of the trek, we didn't trek at all. We were in a hotel, and we got to see Jay and his 3 disciples meet for the first time, all 4 of them together. And so we got to do a Bible study with them, and then hear Jay cast vision. His vision was, guys, God put us here for a reason. He saved us for a reason. He's going to use us to reach this region. Like just all the thousands of Indians up in these mountains, he's going to use us to reach them. Because Paul was only one man. Barnabas was only one man. Timothy only one man. But the end of Acts, Paul said all of Asia has heard the gospel. And Paul didn't talk to all, however many people, 10 million people that were there. He made disciples, and then they continued making disciples, made disciples. You hear that all the time here. But do we actually do it? I mean, do we actually make disciples? Because that's not just the pastor's job. That's what I learned there. It's not the pastor's job, and it's not a missionary's job to make disciples. It's all believers. So if I asked you, if you are a believer, who are you discipling right now? Do you have any people that you are meeting with regularly, praying for regularly, that you are pouring into and training on how to be a good disciple of Christ? If you asked me that, I mean, most of my life I'd say I wouldn't have an answer. I don't have anybody, because I am used to seeing someone saved and then say, hey, come to church, go meet with the pastor, go to Sunday school, go to this equipping class, But we do that, and then we completely disengage from their discipleship process. But no, it's supposed to be we share the gospel with people that we are close to that are lost, and if they believe, then we are the ones that really meet with them. It's not bad to bring them to church and help them meet a pastor, but we should continue to be involved and continue to help discipling these people. So Jay cast vision to these 3 guys. Hey guys, I have you 3 as my 3 disciples right now. I expect you 3 to have 3 of each for each of you. So that would be 1, 3, 9. That was the strategy. And so if you don't know how to do that, if you don't know how to share the gospel or how to disciple someone, like what do I do when I meet with them? How do I say the Bible with them? Well, that's fine. Then you can ask one of the pastors here. You can ask people. They would love. Guarantee it, they would love to teach you how to do that, because I know both of them and all of our elders, all the leaders in this church would want nothing more than for all of our members, all the people that go here, to be making disciples. And so if you want to do that, which I hope you do, and then ask them how to, and they will help you. But that's what I learned, because this trip challenged me I need to be doing that. So when I start my new job, I'm going to go to my apartment. I want to go to my apartment and do that. I want to go to my job and do that. I want to be faithful to obey the Great Commission. And I hope, just casting this vision to all of you, that you would do the same. So again, I wanted to thank you all for praying for me during this trip, but also praying for me since we've been here, since I guess 2012. It's been a while now. It doesn't feel like that long ago, but it's 7 years now. It's been a while. So thank you all for having poured into me and poured into my family, and for just continuing to pray for me and encourage me, and just all that you've done. So thank you for allowing me to share again. And I hope that you've learned something like I did, and that it would push us to continue to actually make disciples here in America.